This one here is just called God Exists. I guess that's pretty self-explanatory. Might as well just get going.
So my last video, I was talking about life and how, life.
Yeah, life. Life. Yeah.
Life proves God.
Oh, I thought you were just kind of talking about life. Like, life, man, Life.
But, that might be kind of a little bit vague for some people, and I can understand that.
Saying life proves God might be a little bit vague. No, it's no vaguer than any other argument for God. Hey, look at life. How'd that happen? Therefore God.
And, life, come on, life. What, like?
Yeah, life, life. Life.
So let's look at something else, right?
Yeah, but life, though. Life, don't you see? Life.
Let's look at what it takes for life.
What does it take for life? Life. What does it take? What is it going to take for life?
For life to be viable. What do we need to allow life to be viable? So I'm going to tell you, it's easy.
Sir, how do we allow life to be viable? I don't. Sorry.
If it's too cold, life dies.
I wasn't convinced that if it's too cold, life dies until you gave me this look right at the end. That's the look of a man who knows what he's talking about.
If it's too warm, life dies.
All right, that look is not as convincing, so I don't believe that life dies if it's too warm. You should stick with the other look.
If it's too wet, life dies. If it's too dry, life dies. If there's too much pressure, life dies. If there's not enough pressure, life dies.
I can't even begin to express the emotional roller coaster I've just been on with you. That was a stunning performance. The presentation, 10 out of 10, obviously. The content, I'm not as convinced. For example, you say if it's too wet, life dies. And I guess I'm curious what you mean by too wet if living in the ocean doesn't count. Now, I'm sure some people are going to type comments about extremophiles that can resist very low pressures or very low temperatures and stuff. I understand, but I think that for our purposes in this video, that's not going to be very applicable. So don't be surprised if I don't mention that anymore.
Life.
Yeah, you know what? I do know life. I never noticed that before. Thank you.
Could only exist in very, very narrow tolerances. There's a little box.
I'm sorry, but I don't believe in the box. You're going to have to give me the look if you want me to believe in the box.
And once we go outside that box, there is no life.
But is it possible that we're the ones outside the box, and everything else is really what's inside the box?
It's very specific.
I don't think it's that specific. There's a box, and life goes in the box. I feel like there's a lot more room to get more specific.
So isn't that interesting?
No. So anyway, what are we doing here, Paul? Is there a plan? Or are we just going to do this for a while?
That, to me, sounds like a design.
Okay. Would you like to be more very specific about that? I don't. Sorry, I no. Should I try to help you out with this, or?
How do we keep things exact?
So the question you have is, how do we keep things exist so exact? Well, see, many places on the Earth are not too cold or too high pressure or low pressure or too hot right now. And so stuff isn't dying there, except when it does. Is there anything else I can help you with, Paul?
For those, it doesn't matter. For those of you who believe in a flat Earth, or you believe in a round Earth, I'm a round Earth guy, but, whatever. Again, I'm not trying to change your belief. I don't really care if you're flat, if you're round.
Oh, so that belief, you're not worried about changing that belief. Round Earth, flat Earth, that doesn't have any important impact on our understanding of what the answer to this question of yours might be about how do we keep things exist.
But whatever you believe, The tolerances on this planet, whether it's flat or round or whatever, have to be so exact that we die.
You don't seem to have died yet. It's getting pretty cold outside. Take off that sweater and go outside for a few days. I think the answer to the question of how do you keep things exist would be not that good-like.
So when you look at exact tolerances, I take my guitar and I look at this and I say, okay, look at this thing. It's got knobs, it's got volume knobs, it's got tone knobs, it's got a little switch here that, could work these pickups. And, if I hit the switch up here, it's going to do these pickups. Hit the switch down there, it's going to do that pickup.
Thank you for that quick tutorial about how the switch on a guitar works. I hate to be mean about this, but I feel like we're getting a little bit off track, and we've been at this for a bit too long already to be getting this off track.
That's design.
Yes, the pickup switch on your guitar is designed. In what way are you proposing this is analogous to different places on Earth are not immediately deadly in terms of their temperature or pressure to some organisms? If you needed help with this script, you could have just emailed me. I've heard this stuff a million times. I can make these arguments in my sleep. But thus far, you appear not to be making them at all.
Look at my amplifier over here.
Whoa, there is an amplifier over there.
I got the knob, I turn the volume up, I go crazy, people start to complain.
Bro, that is sick. You have an amplifier with knobs on it? How is that even possible?
But that's design.
Yeah, I see that. How does that relate to you not instantly dropping dead when you walk outside your front door?
No,
yeah. It's a good one, I guess. Congratulations.
Nobody kind of just, threw a bunch of electronic components in the air and they just all randomly came together to make a guitar and make an amplifier, or whatever it is that we make.
Oh, fuck, you're right. This changes everything.
You look at a painting,
Yeah, the brush and the... Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It's design. You have an idea.
Yeah, that's another thing people do, yeah. Look, anytime you want to call me up and get some coaching on your arguments here, it's fine. I'll do that for free.
Things.
Yes, amplifiers and guitars and paintings are things.
Don't just randomly come together.
Yeah, but they do, though. That's what chemistry is. That's what magnetism is. That's what adhesion is. That's what surface tension is. That's what gravity is. That's what a drainage basin is. That's what dissolving is. I could probably go for an hour like this.
And when you look at this amplifier or you look at this guitar...
I see them, but why am I looking at those? We're not talking about those. We're talking about organic chemical systems. These are not analogous.
Right. The complexity behind making these things is so minuscule compared to the complexity of your DNA, of the DNA of a frickin' leaf on a plant.
Okay, but they're not analogous, so that's not relevant. But what does this have to do with the original point of the video, which was that a lot of organisms don't die from being too cold, too hot, too high pressure, too low pressure, too wet, or too dry? The question was, how do we keep things exist? That appears to have no relationship to what you're talking about now, which is life is complex. How that do?
It's so insignificant compared to the design behind this is so minuscule compared to the design behind what it takes to sustain life.
Wait, behind life or behind what it takes to sustain life? Have we gone all the way through life is complicated and now we're back at how do we keep things exist? How am Earth not too high pressure, low pressure, wet, dry, hot, cold? Look, we can talk about either one. I'd rather not talk about both. Can you pick one before we move on?
Which, by the way, in my last video...
I'm not watching it, audience. It's not worth it. You know that.
Nobody really understands, right? Doctors, philosophers, whatever. Nobody understands life.
Nobody understands life or what it takes to sustain life. I would argue that there's a pretty decent understanding of both. Believe it or not, the understanding of how life works has advanced since, for example, Charles Darwin. Whatever. Again, you have to pick one. We can't just keep jumping back and forth between the two as if they're the same thing. We're not going to do that.
We just know we have it. A lot of us take it for granted. We don't even think about it.
Yeah, I noticed. Case in point. How is life is? Probably nobody has any idea at all. Therefore, God. No, I'm sorry. You're right. That was rude.
So I want to really seriously think about this.
Okay. All right, done. Wait, what was I supposed to think about? I was thinking about spicy cheese puffs. I'm sorry, sir. Please go on.
So now we've got two possibilities, right?
No,
Two.
not two.
I don't see a third. Maybe there is, but
Yeah, there is. You might say it's premature, that I don't know what the options are that you're going to say, that I haven't even listened to them yet, which I haven't. But I pretty much know what they are. This ain't my first rock show, string jiggler.
the first possibility is that we were created.
All right, check. I'm half right already. What, 2 seconds in?
We are the objective of design, of thought.
Yeah, I get the gist. Do we have to do this part? Can we just skip ahead?
The second
Yeah, exactly. Skip ahead to the second one. If you wouldn't mind, please. Thank you.
possibility, and I only see two.
Yeah, I know you only see two. You wouldn't be making an argument this stupid if you didn't. What's that supposed to mean to me?
One, we were created. One, we're an accident.
Yeah, that's along the lines of what I was expecting.
You know, a bunch of, I don't know, energy, and I'm not a scientist, protons, whatever.
Heat cells?
Yeah, elements, floating around. Boom! And all of a sudden I'm here. Woo!
Yeah. You see what I mean about there not only being two options? I mean, aside from the fact that modern scientific ideas about origins are not the only other possibilities other than a god did it, what you just said is not a scientific idea. What you just said is fucking nonsense. You're trying to create a false dichotomy between we were created by design by a god, and there was just a bunch of stuff floating around. I don't know, I'm not a scientist, but anyway, then boom, I just showed up. Nobody thinks that. And yes, I guessed that you're not a scientist, or a science enthusiast, layman, amateur, student, or someone who's spent more than 5 minutes of his entire life showing any interest in any of these subjects. And you know this about yourself, which means that you should also know that you might not be in the best position to be critiquing these ideas when you clearly have no idea what they are.
Come on. Really?
Really what? That I believe the thing you just said? No. Nobody believes that.
Really?
No. See, this is what happens when you speak out of total ignorance. You look like a complete dumbass.
What are the chances, first of all, that all of these things floating around, boom, and we exist?
I don't know. You tell me. It's your idea. Feels like a conscious universe all over again. Although weirdly worse, which I didn't think was possible. Yeah, sure, they both have some sort of particles floating around before the Big Bang. In Almando's case, heat pressure cells. And in this guy's case, energy and, I don't know, I'm not a scientist, protons, whatever, elements. But what Almando has over this guy is that he at least understood that there's some sort of in-between steps. From the Big Bang to people exist. He didn't know what they are. He had no idea what the hell he was talking about. He thought planets and stars are made out of living cells that existed before the universe. But he included things like particles being drawn together, the gradual formation of spherical bodies, the formation of the land and the oceans, the gradual development of living creatures, stuff like that. Like really, really basic, and in his case, incredibly wrongly interpreted ideas. But the fact that he had them there at all makes a conscious universe better than this video. The failure here is catastrophic.
That it gets to the point where not only I exist, but this whole infrastructure called
the United States highway system?
The world, called the universe, called whatever you want, the plants, the air, the water, the fish I eat, the plants I eat, I don't know,
I don't even know, man. I guess out of all those options, I like the name The Fish I Eat the best. So we'll call the infrastructure that.
Really?
Yeah, that sounds the most appealing. I'm hungry.
Boom! I exist?
Well, go figure. So you do.
I think that it takes way
more faith to be an atheist.
Not even a little bit. Way more faith.
Yes?
To think that we are the product.
Oh, you're trying to make it original. Why do you bother? You're still just repeating a bunch of stuff you've heard without thinking about it. You might as well not even pretend otherwise.
Of some random convergence. Rather than somebody who actually said, you know what, I got an idea. I think I'm going to create man, and by man I mean mankind.
Yes, I assumed so. So just for my understanding here, you're telling me that it takes more faith to believe in a thing that you have no clue what it is, even the basics of it, than your religious ideas. And you say this on the basis of, well, nothing, because you don't know what the other thing even is. You understand that the modern scientific idea about the origin of the universe has something to do with particles of some sort, maybe, or energy or something, and something going boom at some point, maybe? You at least know the boom came before the people came, so I mean, hey, you pretty much know what you're talking about. And based on your complete and total ignorance, you're declaring that there are, in fact, only two possible explanations for why there's a universe at all, and that one of them must surely be unbelievable, and therefore, your preferred religious idea is correct. I don't think I could even begin to count how many layers of idiocy that thought process contains.
I think creation just takes way less energy to think about.
Oh, I see. It takes less energy. Thinking about alternative possibilities seriously makes me tired, so I don't wanna.
Creation makes a lot more sense. I mean...
How would you know? You don't even have the energy to think about anything else.
You know all of this?
No, I'm sorry, I don't. I don't know what that's supposed to be at all, and neither do you.
I'm not a scientist. Protons, whatever. You know all of this? Boom! I'm gonna say this.
I don't know why you bother, but be my guest.
Take a handful of pennies.
Where the fuck am I supposed to get a penny? I live in Canada. They haven't distributed pennies since 2013.
A handful of quarters. I don't care. A handful of pennies, let's say. Pennies is good.
Yeah, man, I'm not going to use a handful of quarters in my thought experiment. What am I, a thought millionaire?
Throw them up in the air!
No. If I had a handful of pennies and I threw them all up in the air, I'd never find all my pennies.
There's your random shit, right?
I guess it's debatable whether we consider the physical motion of pennies to be actually random, but close enough, sure. Do me a favor here and explain to me, please, I'm not going to do it for you, how throwing pennies in the air is analogous to every scientific explanation of the origins of anything in reality, glommed together into one amorphous blob summed up with boom! I want you to map this analogy. I want you to take the actual features of actual concepts in science, by which I mean every single one relevant to origins, and tell me how they relate specifically to each aspect of this process of throwing a handful of pennies into the air. Because I'm not convinced there's any way to do this with any meaning or usefulness at all. But email it to me and I'll read it. I'm looking forward to hearing your very well-informed opinion on this matter.
And let them land. And do they all land stacked up nicely?
Yeah, include this part of the analogy in your email too. The whole thing, this stuff, whatever else you want to tack on, just explain to me how this actually relates, in a meaningful sense, to fundamental forces, quantum mechanics, particle physics, the nebular hypothesis, supernova nucleosynthesis. I'm just coming up with things off the top of my head. Don't stop with what I say. Explain to me how, if you throw up a bunch of pennies, they don't come down in a nice, neat stack, is relevant to anything involved in this discussion, in anything other than the most childish, meaningless sense. This shouldn't be a problem for you. After all, you're the one insisting on the relevance of this analogy, so I await your message.
How many times? How many times are you going to throw them up in the air?
I'm not. Pennies are collector's items. I'm going to store them carefully away in a box under my mattress. It's uncomfortable to sleep on, but it's worth it.
Before they all come down and stack up nicely.
Just move along.
Because when you turn around and you think, oh, well, there's a chance. There's a chance.
Are you actually doing the stupid person voice? You think you've earned the stupid person voice? You have no right to the stupid person voice, sir.
Yeah, man. There's a chance I'm going to throw all these pennies up in the frickin' air and they're going to land. But what are the chances of that happening?
You tell me, dude. It's your thing. Why are these people always trying to get people like me to try to justify their ridiculous scenarios? I didn't bring this up. This isn't my thing. This is your straw man. If you want math done, you do it.
Doesn't it make more sense that the only way the pennies are going to get stacked is if I take them one by one and I go...
No, you could also do it without the sound effects.
And when I take them one by one and I go...
Do the sound effects make it easier somehow?
That's design.
Yes, you making a stack out of pennies is design, yes. Did you expect disagreement on this point?
And it took me to do that.
Well, I'm sure you did a great job. Well done, little Polly.
So yeah,
Yep.
God exists.
When I stack pennies, I stack the pennies. So God exists.
Come on, it's just
Come on.
that's just it. God exists.
Jesus Christ, it's almost pitiable enough for me to just say yes.
We are the product of design. We are way too complex to be a random chance.
Got him.
Thanks.
No, thank you. That was my worst video in at least several years. Thanks for wasting the time of, 30,000 people? What an absolute disaster. Thanks for getting through that with me. Would you still give this video a like and click subscribe? It would really help. Huge thanks as always to all of my supporters, early access, email list, list.logicked.com, and I'll see you next time.